There. Thank you for joining us at this briefing. So I am pleased to organize this briefing today because many people have referred to the Global Money Retreat as an online retreat. And no doubt, because we are all over the world, it is necessarily mainly online, right? And we do our practice in our own homes. But there is also an on-site component, which is such a major event. And it was actually Venerable Roger who really encouraged us to include FPMT Mongolia's 100 Million Money Retreat into our overall Global Money Retreat program, because this year they are hosting it for the 14th time. It's absolutely incredible. And so I wanted this session to be perhaps interactive. Perhaps we can get to meet each other, know each other better, and really ask questions which are pertinent to our own situations. Venerable Gyalmo has very kindly agreed to join us to explain further about the situation there if you choose to go. But I think also not just for people who are interested in going, and not even necessarily in going this year. I mean, perhaps it's just something you want to keep in mind for future years. But also, I think for centers who may wish to consider hosting it, because after all, it is one of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's vast visions for the FPMT organization. And so for centers to find out more what FPMT Mongolia does every single year for the past 14 years, that they could somehow adopt, and perhaps it could inspire many people to organize their own 100 million money retreats. So Venerable Gyalmo has been in Mongolia for 17 years. So she first went there to be SPC, and she stayed on year after year. And for the past 14 years, she has also been resident teacher. So also a board member. So we are very, very happy to have you here with us. Very kind of you to share your time with us, Ani Gyalmo. And if I could turn it over to you to just start the introduction. And of course, because it's quite casual, this session, if you need us to pull up any slides, just let us know if it will help you to explain further. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Selena. And I was sitting here thinking that the most common question I get asked living in Mongolia, particularly from international people, is how do you survive the winters? So I'm thinking maybe tonight people are thinking, oh no, Mongolia's way, way too cold. But fortunately, we host our Mani retreats during the usually August, September period, sometimes into October. So we're looking at like late summer and early autumn, which is the most pleasant time in Mongolia. And summers can be quite hot, but not, for days and days in a row. But yeah, maybe people are thinking, oh no, it's it's not the country to go to. However, why did we start the 100 million Mani retreats here in Mongolia? And really, I've got to start out by saying it's because of the great kindness of Khyentse Rinpoche Rinpoche and the inspiration that Rinpoche gave us all. I think for many years Rinpoche had been saying, please, it's time to start. You need to do this, even before I came. So I learned that in 1999, during a Vajrasattva retreat in California, Rinpoche actually said then, oh, there's a lot of interest in retreats, and I really would like the 100 million Mani retreat to be in Mongolia and to be every year. So that was in 1999. So it wasn't until 2013 that we actually made a start. So that's just to firstly acknowledge Rinpoche and how it started. And then Rinpoche said, not only in Mongolia, but he said, perhaps at least in 10 other countries. So this is, as Selena, you said, this is Rinpoche's vast vision, not just Mongolia. Maybe we had to start and showing the way, and it's completely possible. The first year, when I think back now, we were flying blind. We had no idea how it would all go, but Rinpoche came, Rinpoche guided us, gave a lot of impromptu, spontaneously arising teachings, which were always typed up by Venerable Joan on the screen so the English-speaking people could read. And then the Mongolians, of course, had, the translators giving them all of Rinpoche's advice. So that really carried us through. We all worked very, very hard. The whole staff here at FPMT Mongolia, which can be around 20 people on salaries, and then they were all serving in the Mani retreat for the 1 month. So Rinpoche said, look, by doing such a retreat, so many people will be liberated, saved from the lower realms. And even we think about that, it's just like, think, well, we can do this, we must do this. And the country, wherever you hold the Mani retreat, will be blessed, very, very much so. There will be skies of benefit, especially the development of compassion in people's minds. And I can't think of another quality that's more needed in our world right now. All times, of course, but right now. And then in Mongolia, particularly, there are so many animals killed every day. Predominantly it's a meat diet country because of not being able to grow vegetables and things. But with climate change and maybe now introduction of greenhouses, etc., maybe there will be more vegetables available. However, Rinpoche said we have to do something for the animals. So many that are killed. We need to benefit them as well. And then at that time, in the early 2000s, Rinpoche was actually involved, or FPMT Mongolia, through Rinpoche's guidance, in reconstructing Idgha Chönzling, one of the Jatsons in Ganden Techenjing Monastery, which is the central home, you could say, home organization monastery for Buddhists in Mongolia. And so there was a particular temple that Rinpoche sponsored through FPMT. It was completely rebuilt. And then when we were first looking to start, actually in 2012, we thought, we'll go to the countryside, we'll find a nice valley, we'll find, a nice accommodation. And then, there wasn't much to choose from then. But then we got a message from Rinpoche saying, no, better to do in the city, better to do in our temple meaning Idgha Chönzling. And so Rinpoche said, we need to be somewhere central where everybody can come. And particularly the elderly and the middle-aged. If we're out in the countryside, the bus services, it wouldn't have been possible. So that's how we started in Idgha Chönzling. And then I wanted to just mention for people's interest that Mani retreats actually in Mongolia have been practiced since the 15th century. So it goes way back. And then this actually continued until 1930s. When the Soviet occupation occurred. So then, of course, everything stopped in that way. And so the practice has been revived. And at the time, for all those centuries it was being practiced, the IMAGs, like states or provinces, all had their own tunes, and they had a practice that was like a 4-line verse, essential Buddha's teachings, and then it would be interspersed by chanting of Om Mani Padme Hum. And many people did this. And then it kind of stopped. Now it's started again. It has been revived. So our second reason for doing the FPMT Mongolia Mani Retreat here is that our mission is to help to support the revival of Buddhadharma. So particularly those practices that were done for so long and then, couldn't be continued. And fortunately, our retreat, and there are other people, other organizations, not so much Dharma centers, but monasteries who do Mani retreats, but not on the scale of what Rinpoche wanted us to do and we've been able to do. So in 2013, we were very fortunate to have Venerable Senla here. And so Senla, being the wonderful dynamic person that she is, got us started and said, we're going to do it this year. So it happened. And for our first year, we actually had 70 international participants, many nuns. I forget how the exact breakdown of numbers, but quite some nuns, and one monk, Venerable Tendar, came. And then, we didn't know how it would go. It went really well. And then the rest of the participants, hundreds, sometimes 300, 250, 300 on a daily average of people attending, were Mongolian people, local people. Predominantly in the middle to older age group, but quite often they would bring their grandchildren or their children along for a session or two. And what really struck me in those early days, and still does to this day, is the incredible devotion people have to the practice. Their heart is just like, they just can't wait for the Mani retreat to start again. Sometimes I run into people in the supermarket, and especially the older people, and they say, when's the next Mani retreat in Mongolian? I don't understand very much, but I get that one. And they wait. They count the weeks, months. What else to say? Our first one was a very steep learning curve, but with all of the lack of infrastructure and resources, if we can do it here in Mongolia, in the West, it's definitely possible. Probably what we have in our favour is affordability, especially in the earlier years when we started. We don't have to charge people, and we don't charge people any money actually at all, except the first year the international people paid. I don't remember how much, but not so much. They had to pay for their accommodation and then a small fee to attend because we had no idea how we would go financially. Since then, we've actually provided lunch, a vegetarian lunch, every day for every participant. And how that happens is that in Mongolia, there's a practice of dedication where people write down their names, their family names, and usually sometimes a number of members in the family. And then they make a small donation. And it's amazing, many small donations on a daily basis, with the occasional person who wants to sponsor a whole day. So we have, donation amount, suggested donation amount for people to sponsor all the teas and the meals, the breakfast and lunch. And with this money, it covers all of the salaries that we need to pay for the staff, the helpers, and also all the food. And we have money left over to donate to IDGA and give to other charities, all building up our fund for the following year. So financially, it's incredible. It's kind of taken care of itself, which was beyond, we had no idea how that would happen. And then the only year we couldn't do, we did a Mani retreat, but it was different, was because of COVID, like there are many stories. So that year we didn't want to stop, we didn't want to break the continuum. So we did a Chenrezig retreat here at the centre. And then, we had Geshe Thupten Sopa from Serajay Monastery, who teaches at the centre 2 times a week under Rinpoche's advice earlier years. And then he led us in this Chenrezig retreat, and we finished with a fire puja at the end. So it was a full retreat. Then the following year, things were still quite restricted. There was not, couldn't gather in public places and couldn't have large numbers, but we were allowed to have 35 people here at the centre. So we managed to do a small Mani retreat. And then there was one other year we didn't reach 100 million. I think that was the year that Ling Rinpoche came online for the first time. and I think we had less days. There were some reasons, and then
Mm.
internationally, I think there was 15,000. I mean, we were almost there,
Oh,
98,000, 98 million.
right. Yeah, we were close.
You remember?
I
Yeah,
yeah,
we
there was
did.
some renovations, and your money retreat ended up being 3 weeks, not four.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so that was every other year. With sometimes, like I remember, one year was 140 million. Now, in saying that, I would say that some of the numbers for sure are not done within the sadhana. So one year, I don't remember which year, I thought, oh, I better be a bit more strict and, end up sort of get out the rule book and say, you have to do the sessions. And we always remind people that would really please do at least the short sadhana. And I'll talk about sadhanas in a moment. But don't just do the minors. But anyway, I wrote to Venerable Roger to check something. And then he checked, of course, with Rinpoche. And Rinpoche wrote back and said, no, Gyalmo. People have so much devotion. When they recite the manis, please accept them and include them. But what we do sometimes, because people, they do all year round, some do hundreds and thousands a day. And so when it comes in the millions, you think we often halve it, or we take a good chunk off to try and kind of keep, otherwise people think, wow, Mongolia. But that's the truth, yeah. But Rinpoche said, please, don't say they can't count their numbers. It will really upset them, yeah. So I don't know if anybody else will face that issue, but certainly that was wise advice. Pardon me. So, yeah, you said about the 14th year this year, coming up in August, starting on August the 20th. Then the retreat schedule. So we have 4 sessions a day, and very much Lama Zopa Rinpoche kind of laid out the schedule with Sanla and with all of us since. We start in the first session at 8 o'clock in the morning for 2 hours. 10 o'clock we do Lama Chopa Jorcho. And of course we do Sog on the Sog days. The second, third and fourth sessions are all Chenrezig sessions. The last session is 2.5 hours. In fact, it's now 2 hours. We cut it back a bit. It's like, because if it's getting a little bit later in the season, it gets dark and the people want to go home, and then sometimes it's just we nuns left. Anyway, we do protector prayers. We do so many dedication prayers, all advised by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So it's a very full session. But the 3 sessions of Chenrezig are done in a long sadhana, which Rinpoche actually, I think many people know this, Rinpoche composed or put together, compiled, yeah, drawing from the Nungne retreat, drawing from Chenrezig practices, and then made this long sadhana, which is available, I think, on Foundation Store. Maybe also it's one of our resources, yeah. No, you've got the short sadhana, haven't you, on the Global Mani Retreat? Yeah. So the long sadhana is in the Foundation Store. And I remember I first did it in France in 2009 when they had 100 million Mani Retreat. And since then there's been some revisions, but it seems fairly like no changes. So it looks, if you're trying to follow online, I got a lot of feedback. We got a lot of feedback, and I understand that from a distance, there's nobody there to really explain where we're up to, what we're doing, because the main language, of course, is Mongolian Tibetan. So when we're doing the chanting of prayers or mantras, especially prayers, it's done in Tibetan with a Mongolized Tibetan. So some of the words are a little different, but it doesn't take too long to recognize them. Then in the first year, when we had quite some English participants here with us in Mongolia, then we would point out, we had an English schedule, all the prayers, the practices, where we're up to, the page numbers, and then just before they would start in Mongolian, quite often one of us English-speaking people would say, we're now up to this section. Anything that is read, the visualizations and any particular explanations, where we read something, it's read in Mongolian, and then the English read in English. So once if you're here in person, it's actually a lot easier to follow the practice with the sadhana. I appreciate the feedback, because I think if I hadn't been here and trying to do it on my own online, I think also I would be very lost, because Mongolian doesn't sound anything like what any of us are probably familiar with. The shorter sadhana we do also use, not in the sessions in the Gompa, but we encourage people who cannot come for whatever reason, maybe sick, bedridden, too far away, can't get transport, maybe not very mobile, and then they are able to follow this, we call it the home practice, shorter sadhana, which you're using in the Global Mani Retreat, which is a wonderful option for people who can't do the full retreats. So when we say retreat, we usually think we start at the beginning and we have to attend every day, every session for 1 month. This is, with the Mani Retreat, quite different in that people can come for one session, they can come for 1 day, they can come once a week, they can come whatever time works for them. We encourage major participation, not kind of a strict retreat. If we're doing Chenrezig retreat, then that's something different. But with the Mani retreats, there is this openness of flexibility that also makes it maybe more appealing for people to come along, and then they might think they'll just come for a day or two, and then they keep coming back because they're really enjoying the retreat. So the Mongolian texts that we follow in both the home sadhana and the Gompa, the long sadhana, have all been translated from English. So there is no problem to follow in English in terms of the order of the practice. I have still, to this day, every year, update if there's any page changes or retreat prayer book. We use a retreat prayer book for all of our standard prayers and Lama Chopa Dorcho. And then we use the Chenrezig sadhana booklet. So just 2 booklets. So if any English-speaking people are coming from overseas, if they have their retreat book, whether it's online, one of their devices or paper copy, this already is good. And then we can supply the retreat sadhana if they don't have. So I think that's mainly probably there's only a couple of people, right? There's only main things about the practice. Maybe there are many questions, but because I've been doing it for so long, it's good if people have questions, because it'll prompt me to say things that maybe have just become automatic for myself. And then do you want me to pause for that, or shall I just say a little bit about UB?
Are there any questions about the sadhana in the meantime?
Yeah.
Before we move on from our cozy little Zoom room here. So just to clarify, since I think nobody's put their hand up, just to clarify, so in the retreat, you do the long Chenrezig sadhana, and that is what is available on the foundation store. Whereas the people who do online, actually,
Yes.
they follow the one that we are using now, right? The short Chenrezig sadhana, which is actually compiled on the advice from Lama Zopa Rinpoche for participants in the 100 Million Money Retreat. That's the one that we are doing now in the Global Money Retreat.
Right. I understood Rinpoche composed it also for people who couldn't attend the retreat, because of sickness, or quite some of the elderly people can't even read, but they know prayers. Yes. They know the prayers. That's the case in Mongolia, but it's quite acceptable to follow the short. But in the way we were taught by Rinpoche in the Mani retreat itself was to follow the long sadhana. Rinpoche wants maximum.
In other words, okay. So in other words, for those of us who actually choose to travel to Mongolia to participate in the retreat, we will be following the long sadhana.
You would. In the Gompa, you would be following the long sadhana.
Yeah. And what you're saying, because it's in Tibetan with a Mongolian accent, it is very difficult to follow. But when we are there will be someone who can explain all this in English. So it's not as difficult as online, right? Because as I was saying to you, Venerable Gyalmo, when we tried to follow it those past few years, when it was virtual money retreat time and we were contributing to the count as well, I think a few of us joined online, but I think we also very quickly gave up because you can't follow, and there's no one to tell us what's what. The very few parts that we could recognize, because the tune as well. But that's not to scare people off from going. In fact, it's easier if we go.
Much better to come.
Yeah.
Much better to be in person, because you can talk about, we can ask different live people to sort of ask questions of and clarify points. Online, of course, I didn't have, I wasn't going online at all because we're leading nuns. That's the other thing here in Mongolia. There's nuns leading the retreat, which is something quite unusual. It's nearly always monks leading everything. So it's really nice somehow with the Mani retreat. So far, the Mongolian nuns, and sometimes we had two geshe, one geshe ma, now she's 2 geshe mas now. They came Geshe Namdong Potsok, and I can't remember the other one's name, but they came and led 1 year. And then we have local Umzes, Mongolian nuns, one studying in Dharamsala. She quite often comes back and helps us. And then sometimes Western nuns. For the last few years, it's just been myself, but maybe sometime soon, hopefully somebody else will come and join us. Yeah. So from the nun's point of view, and then yes, if I could have come online and said, okay, now this is where we're up to and that, but it just breaks up in the retreat on the line. In person, we can do, because what we did in 2013 was we had everybody all the English-speaking people were gathered behind the English-speaking nuns. So we could sort of talk to them before the session, and then during the session, if they were really lost, we could point out. And then after a while, people, once you get the flow of it, is quite easy.
Right. I think the other important point. Sorry. I think the other important point you made was that it is flexible. Just like the Global Money Retreat is also flexible. I mean, I think in the beginning, the guidelines for the Global Money Retreat also were based on an ideal situation. But, ideal situations for retreats generally don't go on for 5 months, right? So I think he did understand the situation, which is why also in our case, it's not like you've got to keep doing the sadhana every single day. It's not like you have to do any specific sadhana. And actually I think his encouragement, of course, was to do it the proper way, surely, where you recite the money mantras within the sadhana, which would actually, that advice came from your side, when we joined you for all those times.
Yes.
But as you were saying too, and also Ken Rinpoche has said that, if people want to start the sadhana in the morning, go off and do the day, recite mantras the whole day, dedicate at night, he said, of course, in a normal setting, in a normal retreat, that is not so much a retreat. But he said, in this, sure, he said it's okay. So I think that's nice for everyone to know, because otherwise maybe they're thinking, my goodness, we've got to come to Mongolia and we've got to spend an entire month there. So you're saying not necessarily at all. And even if they are in Mongolia, they could go sightseeing one day and go to the money retreat the other day.
Absolutely. You can come for a few days, then go off into the countryside for a few days. I mean, it's very flexible. We don't have any sort of registration process, although probably with the first year international people, we did have a registration form, but we arranged some accommodation then. But this time we decided, like in future, we would ask people, we would give a list. So I'm going to accommodation, but maybe it's appropriate. And give a list of recommended hotels, guest houses, Airbnb. People can check this online themselves. And then people check on the links and they make their own booking, their own arrangements, because we don't have the administrative people to be able to manage all of the booking, and we don't have accommodation. I mean, at the centre we usually host 1 or 2 Mongolian nuns who are helping us in the retreat, and then maybe 1 or 2 Western nuns if they came. But other than that, people have to find their own accommodation. But it's very central, and there's a lot of accommodation in Central City. This centre itself is very central, and we're about, pardon me, a 20-minute walk from Ganden, from Idgachernseling, which maybe you can pull up that slide, Jasmine, if it is convenient.
Yes.
Yeah, I forgot
Jasmine,
about that.
That large white temple?
White building.
You can get it from the PDF file. That might be easier. So in other words, for people who come, they would be better off staying near the temple rather than near the center, because it's 20 minutes away.
Although the center, I mean, for us, for 20 minutes it's just up the hill. It's really not far at all. We're used to walking.
That's the center.
This is the center.
In fact, since we've got them all up, maybe you can give us a commentary on all of this after showing this.
Okay,
temple.
there's Idgachernseling. Yep. So when we first started, there wasn't a 3rd floor. So now there's been renovation in the last 2-3 years.
It's huge.
It's huge. It really is huge. We can have up to 1,000 people in the Gompa easily, and probably squeeze in a few more hundred. But it's,
so those are the shots to come. I think those next few shots must surely be from that temple, if you want to.
So this
That's
is
you.
The three Mongolian nuns here are all previous Dormeling nuns. And we had Domeling Nunnery, which is suspended at this time. But Annie Nima, the small one here next to myself, was our Umase, very nice voice. Annie Gunchin and Annie Balgett. So they're all Domeling nuns. And as I said, many people, especially the women, are very inspired that nuns are actually leading an event. And this is our Nungnei Chenrezig altar. And then the Tormas this particular year, Geshe Tupten Zopa, actually helped with the decoration. So they were really stunning. They were really beautiful. And then here's the Gompa. So on the left, well, my left, probably your right, yeah. Then this is a typical day in the Mani retreat. Sometimes there's a few more spaces, sometimes there's no space. And then on the right here, the monastery, the Gompa, actually there was a fire back in 2020 during COVID, and the altar got very badly damaged, and gutted, in fact. So the whole Gompa was renovated, and now very, very nice. Size stayed the same, but greatly improved flooring, and the altar now, of course, is almost completed, I think. So we have lots of space to do prostrations. That's the other thing, Rinpoche, at the beginning of each session, Lama Zopa and all of the 3 Chenrezig sessions, we start out with prostrations of 35 Buddhas and 7 medicine Buddhas. And here, actually, there's so many photos of Mani retreats, and you get the sort of sense of the devotion. And a lot of these women, they don't sit on a cushion even, they just sit on the floor all day long. Even through the break times, some of them don't, other than going to the toilet, they don't get up. They're just reciting Manis non-stop. Incredible.
That next photo is amazing. I mean, it's huge. I love that photo. Yep, this one. Wow.
Yes. The next one, is it? Oh, yes. Yeah.
This one we're looking at now.
This, I think Rinpoche, looks like Rinpoche was there. Maybe this, I don't know which year it was. It could have been one of the early years. Of course, when Lama Zopa was there, it was always a very full Gompa. And then on the final day, we have a closing ceremony. Oh, it gets absolutely packed. Mongolian people are interesting. They're very nomadic, and they love to come at the beginning, drift away in the middle, and all come at the end of the last week. It's a bit like you think you're not going to make the number, and suddenly they all turn up and
Wow.
the numbers roll in.
It doesn't look very cold.
No, not at this time.
What temperatures are we looking at from 20th August to 17th September?
Yeah.
So is it warm?
Yes. The seasons actually sometimes is actually quite hot in the Gompa, especially when you're sitting more in the central part where we nuns sit, and anybody sitting in the central part, is that it really gets quite hot. And just with the number of bodies as well, doing prostrations. But August this year will be early autumn, because the summer, the seasons, not unlike in the West, I don't know, in Southeast Asia, maybe also, you go by the lunar. So we've had the first week, the first day of summer was, I think, 17th of May, the beginning of Sakadawa. And then 2-3 months, some years we get 4 months of summer. This year we've got 3 months, and then we'll be going into early autumn. But autumn's very nice. It's sort of cooler in the mornings and evenings, but the days are very nice because it's too hot. It's difficult with so many people. So very comfortable.
Maybe you can show us that last slide. I think it's coming up, Jasmine. Yeah, maybe you could just explain a bit about this before we go back to looking at you. This your animals, the liberated animals, which is one of the reasons for 100 Million Mani Retreat.
So this is the first or second year. This man in the blue dell in the middle with a horse, his name is Jigbad, and he's a very devoted practitioner. He lives far from UB in a place called Borgun, which is about an 8-hour drive in a good car, good vehicle from UB. And then I think it was maybe the first or second year, Rinpoche came both years. The second time, 2014, not for the whole time, but came for a couple of weeks. Rinpoche spoke a lot about liberating animals. He had such an audience, of course. And Jigmed, this man, heard it, really heard it, and he left the Mani retreat saying to himself, I really wanted to do something, as Rinpoche has been advising. So the idea was sort of planted in his mind, and I think maybe the next 1 or 2 years, and he started talking to us, and then we were really wanting to liberate some animals, and it's not easy to find a herder who will take care of the animals and not at some point want to have them, because they need food. So Jigmed is still to this day looking after the liberated animals. We started out with, I think, something like 5 goats and 5 sheep, and yeah, that's all we had in the first year. Now we're up to 100 mixture of goats and sheep. And we had 2 horses. One horse has disappeared. We're not sure, sometimes because there's no fences, they can just run wild. And this horse that Jigmed's giving some medicine to, I think through his nostrils, is still with us. Then the cow, this cow has a very interesting story. It was taken to the market, I think 3 times. 3 times it escaped. Nobody really knows quite how, because it's not easy to escape, apparently, the place. I haven't seen the place. And so on the 3rd time, I don't know if Jigmed heard about it or somebody heard about it and said, this cow has to be liberated. It just doesn't stay in the market. And then it's really wild. And so it was tied to the post, and then we were gingerly giving it a blessing and squirting water and mani pills and things on it. So yeah, the animal liberation has been really inspiring. And in fact, I think it's this horse. One horse was liberated for Lama Zopa Rinpoche a few years ago. So yeah, that's the story. Was inspired from the Mani retreat, 100 million Mani retreat.
Any other questions before I ask some questions? I think there were some people asking not just about accommodation, but I think because Ulaanbaatar, right, is not exactly around the corner for most of us. So it's this almost like this fabled land. So basic things like how safe is it? What's the currency? Are things expensive? How do you get around? Just, of course we can look it up online, but it would be so much nicer to hear it from you.
Thank you. Yeah. Safe-wise, I think it's probably like any major city. There is quite a lot of poverty, not so much in central city now, but in the Gare districts, which I guess you would call like slums in cities, where a lot of nomadic people live, very poor people. They can't get work. They come from the countryside with a dream to get a good job, get money and educate their children. Of course, things don't pan out this way because they're not qualified to do anything other than take care of animals, which they do extremely well. So in the city, there's some pickpocketing. I've never had any direct experience myself, but tourists are often targeted. But sometimes, I do see tourists walking and I think, wow, not so skillful. We've got a lot of poor people and holding up very expensive phones and dressed very, how to say, look like you're very wealthy. Not everybody, of course, but some. So, I've heard of, quite some incidents, of course. And then on the buses, they pack in. So in crowded situations, you don't have things sticking out of your pockets or even in your pockets. You have it tucked inside your clothing. But just common sense, I don't think it's any less safe than other major cities. In UB, we have maybe a population, I think now, between 1.6, 1.7 million, which doesn't sound very big, but the whole population of Mongolia is about 3.5. So we've got about half the Mongols living in Ulaanbaatar city. So safe-wise, yep, I think it's quite okay. I don't go walking around at night, on my own, but not because I'm scared, but mainly because of drunk men. There's a big alcohol problem, alcoholism, a lot of drinking, but don't generally attack people, but yeah, it's just not so nice. What else did you ask me about? Food. Food is now, there's a lot of variety of food in the supermarkets. When I first came, vegetarianism was kind of a foreign word, although there are quite some Mongolian people who are vegetarian, even vegan, in fact. And there wasn't so much choice. But now in the city, there's a wide variety of food. Expense-wise, of course, anything like coming from Europe is more expensive than your local produce. A lot of fruit, vegetables come in from China or even South America, from around the world. So I don't know. I haven't lived in the West for so long. I can't really compare prices, but Mongolia, I'd say, is still one of the more affordable countries. The currency here is called tugrik, and you don't talk in just like ones and tens and twenties, thousands. So 50,000 is 100,000. The smallest note is 50 tugrik, 10 tugrik, so it's like 1 cent, 2 cents, very small. So it's pegged against the US dollar, so that's not very helpful for a poorer country. The exchange has gone up. I think it's almost triple since I've been here. But yeah, as foreign person or as people on a good salary, you can live, quite well here. But of course, the poor people, with all this inflation and with the current world events, this is making very difficult for these people. Very difficult. Yeah, I don't know how some of them survive, really. Especially in the winter, because you not only have food and clothing, the clothing has to be really substantially warm, and that's, costs a lot more. You have to have 4 seasons clothing. And then the heating, in the Gare districts, they have to burn coal, sometimes wood, but usually coal. And this all has a cost. Yeah, so for the tourists coming here, I think it's probably still quite affordable, very affordable.
Okay, so there are some questions in the chat box as well. I'll just go through the one that is directly relevant to what you're talking about before the question about the sadhana. This question from Maggie says, "What is the name of the city where the center is located, and how far is the airport?"
The city is Ulaanbaatar, and the airport, used to the old airport, was quite close. Now it's like a 45-minute drive. In traffic can be 1 to 2 hours, but depends on when you come in. But if you have a good run, it's 45 minutes from the heart of the city to the airport. It's a new airport. It's of course, much nicer, and there are more flights being arranged now. So that's why, they built, compared to the old one, it was not possible to expand the flight activity. The main ways to come into Mongolia through either from Europe, usually from Frankfurt, the local airline Miat comes in from Frankfurt, or Turkey, or if you're coming from Asia, it'll be through Beijing. I think sometimes there's a direct flight from Singapore. Sometimes they run it and then it stops and then it starts again, through Hong Kong or through Seoul, South Korea. These are the main sort of nearest cities. And I think what puts people off to Mongolia is kind of not on the way to anywhere, unless you're going to Russia, and people are not doing that these days. So, yeah. So it's quite isolated, but it's still the countryside is very beautiful, very varied geography. I mean, many people come, photographers come, because it's one of the most beautiful countries in the world for photography and for exploring, for the adventurous traveler. Also very, very peaceful. If you want a kind of a retreat, or you can find a lot of space without people. It's very, very nice.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Maggie. Otherwise, you can ask directly, or maybe type it into the chat box. In the meantime, the other question from Diane is the retreat book in English, Tibetan, Mongolian? Will it be available from the foundation store? I think you mentioned yes, right?
Well, I didn't check today actually, but I'm fairly certain that it is there.
Yeah, I think so. So is what the Long Chenrezig Sadhana? What title do we look for? Because there's so many versions, right?
Yeah, what is it called? Actually, I should know that. I've got it on my iPad. That may be quicker. It has quite a long name. It's not just called Chenrezig Sadhana, otherwise I wouldn't look. You could bear with me for one moment, please.
While you're looking, I think
Sadhana of Great Compassionate One, Arya Chenrezig. I'll say that again. A sadhana of Great Compassionate One, Arya Chenrezig.
Actually, what you can do is perhaps share that with me, and in the post, which I will put up, to talk about this session, I will include that as well.
That would be good.
And then people can either get it, look through it, or, so
And
that they can see the
sure.
sadhana.
This one, the last edit, I think it was 218. I'm pretty sure it's the last version. They usually have the most update one. I will send it to you straight after the session or now.
Anytime. It's okay. After the session is fine.
Maybe after the session, yeah. So
Yeah.
not too yeah, so that's the name based on the Nungne Sadhana, and then it's got according to the instructions of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So there's many extras in it. Very nice. There's also the appendix at the back with the mudras and how to think, how to motivate, what to think when you're reciting the mantras. It's a very beautiful production. So I hope that answered Maggie's question. What city is it? You mentioned there would be a list of accommodation. Would you have a list names of reliable drivers? We can do that. I'll make a note here. We haven't done anything yet because in Mongolia, we tend to do things at the last minute, which used to really scare me. I used to think we're never going to be ready in time. But magically things come together. I'll never doubt them now. They do know exactly what they're doing.
Well,
Drivers.
last year, I think it took you 2 weeks to organize a 100 million money retreat. So
Yes.
I think for any other center who wants to organize a 100 million money retreat, just remember FPMT Mongolia just took 2 weeks.
And we don't have all the infrastructure. We have very good Wi-Fi, but we don't have all the infrastructure you have in the West foreshore. But you can do it. You have to be courageous, not be too anxious, but it comes together. I think by the blessings of Chenrezig, honestly, and Rinpoche, of course, Guru Chenrezig.
Yes.
Yeah.
So sorry. So you were saying about the drivers.
The drivers, yes.
Yeah.
We can certainly recommend some drivers. And the interesting thing here in UB, or probably anywhere in Mongolia, but especially in UB where most people are, is that anybody can be a taxi. You could just put your hand out, and we would never do this in the West now, but here it's still safe. You put your hand out, and when somebody stops, they will take you to your destination.
What?
There's no fixed fee. Of course, you have to negotiate the fee, and if you don't have Mongolian, then you need some help there, of course. But they do have formal taxis. That's been a more recent development. But anybody can be a taxi driver. Many people make their living by driving their car around the city, picking up people. Can you believe? That's not to put you off.
Safe?
Sorry?
That's safe?
Yes. Yes. I've done many, many times and on my own
Just
often.
putting your hand up.
Yes. Put your hand out. Yeah. But anyway, we can find there are many good drivers here, and you need to be a good driver. Traffic is it's not so much that it's dangerous, it's different. It's really chaotic. And people in the past would say that the Mongols drive their car like they're riding the horse. So, the horse can turn very quickly in any direction. It's a little like that in the cars. I drove for years in Australia, but I've never driven here. I just thought, no, I'm very happy that we have a driver employed. It's just different. So were there any other questions, Selena?
Yeah. We don't have to keep anyone if we are out of questions. So we can actually conclude it. I think basically, to summarize, what you're saying is in terms of centers that are thinking of hosting a 100 million money retreat, it's highly encouraged because what was it you were saying? Rinpoche himself wanted at least 10 centers in the world to be hosting one.
10 other countries, didn't they say number of centers? How many countries centers in the country?
I will put that down on the list. And I think the fantastic point is that if it can take you 2 weeks to organize one, surely any other center can also even think about organizing a retreat.
Then you don't have the language issue. That's a big thing, getting everything translated, and it's huge work, as anybody knows, who has to rely on translations. But if you don't have that, you can pull it together quite quickly. Of course, we're fortunate with the venue, that we have a temple like the size that you see, But here in Mongolia, we need a large temple. We couldn't do it in the center. Center's way too small.
Mm.
So no, I would, and also, I'm happy if anybody wants to arrange and they, have some questions, they want to write to me, email me, WhatsApp me. I'm happy to help, because we've just learned each year as we do it, we learn something more. Not experts, but we've got a whole lot better at it.
So I think because you did provide me with your email as well, should I share
Yes.
that on the post?
Yeah, if people really
Okay.
genuinely either want to come to Mongolia or they sincerely want to set up a money retreat in their country, if there's anything we can help them with, we'll be happy to do that.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers it, Annie Gilmore. I had very much hoped for this session to reassure people that, the 100 Million Money Retreat, number one, is very worth hosting, and number two, is very worth attending. And it doesn't necessarily need to be this year, just because Global Money
No,
Retreat is in.
no.
It can be any time. So I think the value of a session like this is that the information is now out there. I mean, we will put it on YouTube. It is a source, a reference source, so that people don't feel like it's on another planet. I mean, Mongolia, to many of us, it's virtually another planet. That you bring it home in terms of all the things, the mundane things that we still worry about, which is the money, the accommodation, the security, and all that. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Selena, for arranging it and I guess putting Mongolia on the map. Sometimes,
Yeah,
people often say
very
to me, "Oh, we
much.
will come and see you," but not many people come. But when people do come, I mean, I meet a lot of tourists in the summer. People love the country. They either really love it or they really can't wait to leave. But generally, they love it. No, I
Thank
would
you very
encourage.
much.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, Selena, and thank you, Jasmine, for your support. And
Thank
I
you.
hope that it's been helpful. And I apologize if I
Very,
forgot.
very informative. Very informative. This
We have
is very much a
lots of
part of.
very good ATMs. I mean, there are things do function quite well. It's like, people might be thinking it's so backward, but no, it's Wi-Fi in most places is very good quality. There's
We
many.
do have another question.
I saw
Very
a
nice.
hand.
Here we go. Maggie. Okay, well, the hand is up.
Hello
Hi.
there. Hi.
Hi.
I'm connected from Valencia, Spain.
Oh,
Ah,
So I'll have to talk to our Venerable Paloma and see if we can organize a money
ooh,
retreat. Yes,
yes.
I like that idea. Anyway,
nice.
I'm very interested in finding out more. So I was wondering, I have to sort of make my list of questions. You mentioned you're going to give your email address you can be written
Yes.
to.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
happy for you to do that, Maggie. And in fact,
Okay.
Maggie, if you talk to Venerable Paloma, she came in 2013 and she
Ah,
stayed in the Lotus Guest House with, I forget, 15, 20 nuns. I was really worried about the accommodation, worried about how they'd all get along, and they had so much fun. They still used to talk about it many years later. So if you talk to Venerable Paloma, I'm sure she'll be very supportive.
oh yes. Oh, well, I will. She's in Italy today, or this
Oh, is
weekend.
she?
She's
Right.
there at a retreat. But normally
Uh-huh.
we have class together on Mondays. I went with
Right.
her last year to Copan. It was
Oh,
marvelous. Yeah.
nice,
Okay, well
nice.
then, so I can talk to her, ask her any other questions too. I'm sure you must be busy. Okay.
Well,
And then you will post your email somewhere or
Are
Selena will.
you a member of, have you joined the Facebook group, Maggie? That
yes,
is,
yes.
yes. So at the end of every session, I normally do a summary of what's happened in the session, thanking the speaker
Ah,
and what it's
okay.
about. So in that session, I will also post the information about the sadhana and also the contact details for Annie Gyalmo in case you need to contact her directly about, travel plans or whatever you
Won-
need to know.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much. This was very informative. Thank you.
We look
Thank
forward
you,
to a 100
Maggie.
million money retreat in Spain.
Yes, wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah.
It would be.
We
May it
went, yes.
happen.
We have 4 monks visiting us from India. and we have Lam Geshe-la, and so we went to the bay for the liberation of animals, which we used to buy them in the market and liberate them in the bay, which is now no longer acceptable. But we had some beautiful mantra plaques made, and so we cruised with the plaques in the water, blessing all the animals. It was a beautiful day.
Wonderful.
So a lot of people turned up to join in. So, there's a lot of goodwill here. So it might be a good thing. And Venerable Paloma led a really nice Nyungi retreat for us in the beginning of Sakadawa. So, okay, well,
very good.
We'll put it on the stove and get it cooking.
Right.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you so much for your
All the
kindness,
best, Maggie.
and your help. I'm really pleased how well this is going, and this is great to be able to join in on Zoom. It's marvelous. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you.
Namaste.
And anyone else? I think we can conclude it then, can't we?
I think so. Well, we're
We
almost
shall
maybe
all
now.
be in touch with you for all these various things. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. May
Thank
it
you,
inspire
Selena.
so many others to attend, to host, to really, follow Lama Zopa's advice. And in doing so, may compassion grow in this world that, as you say, needs it so, so badly. Terrible, terrible. So may we all do our bit. And not only that, but whatever we do, may it continue to grow and grow. And we dedicate it to our gurus, for Lama Zopa's unmistaken reincarnation, for his swift return, dedicated for all the dear sentient beings that we are trying so very hard to help. And so may all our prayers come to fruition as quickly as possible. And thank you to you, Ani Gyalmo, really lighting the fire, really, fueling our inspiration to do as much as FPMT Mongolia has done, which is amazing. 14 years. 14 years, and there'll be many, 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 many more.
I hope so, yes.
You have to keep holding them so that we can all come one day.
Exactly. Please come one day. If not this year, maybe soon.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, Selena. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Jasmine. Thank you.
Thank you.